Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in to this edition of the This Week in Flyers Hockey. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you. And with me, as always, my group of companions on a very, I guess you could say, a muggy South Philadelphia here in the Delaware Valley. But joining me once again is my group of companions, Joey Marks and Austin Hammel, on this very important Monday. Gentlemen, good to see you guys. And we are just counting down the days of hopefully some better hockey ahead of us. But hopefully, you guys are doing well on this Monday afternoon.
Doing well, James. James, you're underwater. Put your mic back on, Bubba. We want to hear that voice. Those
Oh,
dulcet
oh,
tones.
excuse me. Oh, wow. Part of my. Oh, wait, it's my mic. Okay, hang on. There we go. Now we got it.
There you
There.
go. There's that voice.
There's the
All
voice.
right.
Absolutely. Well, that's kind of like how the Flyers were on Saturday because everything was not going the way we expected to go, and I guess obviously it was the office night, and I guess if we had a little bit of Michael Scott return.
Technical difficulties like they had on with the replays. So,
Yeah,
it's fitting.
yeah, absolutely. But like I said, like before I had my technical glitches, like I said, joining me once again, Joey Marks and Austin Hammel. Well, guys, let's dive into it, shall we? Because we have nothing else to talk about here on this in this day and age to talk about the day and age of inconsistent Flyers hockey. But believe it or not, it was a good week for them. Hard to believe. They got 2 wins out of it up in Minnesota and again at Washington. So Joey and Austin, I'll ask you the first question here. So the 2 games they won on Wednesday and Thursday were a very good mood swing for the Flyers and a positive springboard into a little bit of a streak. And then Columbus came in and then just felt like they never really got it going. I felt like they looked like they were kind of worried at some points of the game. But Joey, I'll ask you this question here: Is there a way that we can find a way to get back to where we were as a team? Because right now, I mean, they desperately need points in every which way, and that's going to probably be the biggest key coming up this week because it doesn't get prettier after this.
Small mistakes turn into bigger problems, and that was almost magnified both in the Rangers game and in the Columbus Blue Jackets game. Small problems, small mistakes, you think nothing of it. If you have all the talent like a team like Minnesota or the Capitals or whatnot, you can make up for some of that. But small mistakes with a talented team, but that's still young and growing, small mistakes can turn into big problems. And that's exactly what happened. And that Columbus Blue Jackets game, I watched it, and believe me, when I tell you that it felt like the game could have been theirs if they wanted it. It was just a coin flip. And honestly, I think that for the most part, their defense let them down. And Dan Villard is the only reason why that game was even close.
Yep.
Because there was turnovers, there was sloppy play in the defensive section. There were turnovers where they shouldn't have been, sloppy passing by veteran players. So there was a lot of like little mistakes that turned into big problems. And even though that game went to 1-1 into the shootout, at that point, Dan Villard, he can stand on his head only so much. And at some point, you're going to get a guy that, like they did in the shootout, that's going to, expose him. And he did. And, kudos to Columbus. They're fighting for a playoff spot too. They're putting all their chips in the center. And let's see what happens. The Flyers are not. And we've seen that at the trade deadline is they are more of a team that is willing to ride out what they have to see if they can make any headway in the playoff race. And you know what? After this week with the win against the Capitals and the win against the Wild in Minnesota, my flag is still firmly planted. 6 points out of the last wild card spot, 1 game left against Boston, 3 games against Detroit. There's still a lot of hope to still be here because as much as we could go on a heater, one of those teams that is ahead of us could go on a ice cold streak, and we could swap positions fairly easily.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Austin, I'll ask you this question before I get my point of view about this. Is there a way we can come back from this? Obviously, because like obviously we've seen it before with Flyers in the past. I mean, they were the seventh seed, and it took the last game of the season to get in the postseason, and hard to believe that's 16 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's. I guess the question I would ask you is that sorry, I'm keep on getting good updates and shit. Sorry about that. Is there like how can the Flyers get back momentum with this, especially like this hard to believe this game on Columbus got them back in the behind the eight ball, like my dad Joe Scorza brought up here.
I mean, a lot of it's going to rely on the consistency of your talent. You know, I mean, you saw a lot of really good performances from Owen Tippett, from, you know, Michkov put in some really good work. Zegras has been playing really well. You know, you have to rely on a lot of the talent that those guys bring to the table. But there are times where, you know, it's definitely not enough. And you have to, you know, some of those secondary guys have to be able to step up, like the Grabenkins, the Grundstroms. I saw Emil Andre is back from his injury now, which is, I feel like, is going to be big for that blue line offensively. It's a lot of, you know, hope. You know, it's I guess the word that I would be using right now is hoping that the talent can come through for you. And, you know, Dan, like Joe said, Dan Vladar can only do so much. He can keep you in a game for so long, but if you're not, you know, putting pucks into the net, it's going to be a lot tougher to be able to sit, you know, keep yourself in a game in the later minutes, especially with the way situations are now with a lot of these teams. Like New York came out firing on us to start off the week, and we just couldn't stem the tide. That's pretty much all it was. Like we were having a lot of trouble getting the puck out and through, a lot of trouble maintaining possession in the offensive zone in that game against New York. Locked it back in against Washington and Minnesota. The Minnesota game I thought was probably the best game of the entire week personally. But, and then, you know, like you said, coming off of the high of beating a pretty top flight team in Minnesota, you come back and you get punched in the mouth by Columbus. So, I mean, you're going to have to rely on the talent that's there. And, you know, like your dad's just saying here, you can't win many games scoring just one, because the way a lot of these teams are playing now, they're pushing even harder because of the fact that they're either fighting for a playoff spot like we are, or fighting for a higher seeding in the playoffs when the time comes. So you have to rely on, you know, the guys that, you know, are capable of being able to handle that pressure, and everyone else just sort of has to fall in line behind it. And that's where, you know, you're seeing a lot of your current issue is it's a lot of, you know, like Joe said, it's a lot of small mistakes, and a lot of those, and like you said, Joe, especially with you know, the younger talent that we have, sometimes they can, you know, pile up on you, and especially because you're young, the adjustment isn't there mentally right away, so it ends up putting you in a bit more of a hole than you would like to be. But, you know, you just have to hope that, you know, Tockett's getting these guys ready every single night to be able to put out a strong effort going forward, because the time to dig in is now. You know, you can't rest on your laurels any longer. You have to really put full hockey games together the rest of the way here to be able to make yourself, you know, capable of being in a position to fight for that final playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that I think the one thing I took out of it, so basically on Wednesday when they took on Washington, I mean, it was a little bit of a slow first period, but they were able to bounce back in that second and third. The Minnesota game, I thought it was probably their best win of the season, as much as we brought up a couple months ago with the Colorado game on that Friday night and how they bounced back against a team like Colorado. But that Columbus game, it's just like like I said, they never felt like they really got it going. I felt like they just were like really just losing steps here and there. I mean, there were some times that they looked like they were scared to shoot the puck. They just looked like they were desperately just like looking to play hero ball, or dare I say, like sometimes it kind of looked like Ben Simmons in a crucial time in the game. I mean, I don't want to bring his name up, but in ways, I mean, fans were yelling "shoot!" I mean, even my dad, which I was watching the game when I mean, he was just like desperately telling the Flyers to desperately shoot the puck. I mean, I never understood how like the Flyers at one point, like this happens many times before, like they know how to play the game of hockey, and then there's like other games they forget how to play the game, and it drives me insane. It drives me nuts, quite frankly. And the thing that I took out of that Columbus game is that it was only just a 1-0. It was a 1-1 tie. It was like, it's not like it was like 4-1 or 5-1. I mean, they had Columbus on the ropes. I mean, they had them like desperately looking to try to get the lead, and they never really felt like they wanted it more. And
I couldn't agree more, James, because you brought up something, and it's honestly, it's making me process a lot. And it's something we haven't talked a lot about on this show, but it needs to be brought up.
sure.
It is that, the Flyers are last in power play.
Right.
And they had
Good point.
almost a 4-minute power play, pretty much 5-on-4. And they they only mustered like 2 or 3 shots out of 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's just not
I
good
didn't
enough.
even think about that. That's true. Yeah.
That is the epitome of what like your dad's talking about and what you're talking about. That's the perspective. Now look, JJ had said this on the telecast, and I agree with this, but shots shouldn't be rocket science.
No.
It's not a catching football. Like we're not figuring that part out. Like, but JJ said, they're measuring shots differently now. So like certain shots don't count. Like they may count in the game, and then people repeal it back and stuff like that. But I look at like the fact that if you only get 3 shots on goal for a 4-minute power play, and it's not something that should happen. It's just not. I don't care if you are the last place team in the NHL. You shouldn't be able to be stymied that much for that long. You should be able to punish the opposing team for that whole 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And be able to stuff a puck in. Like it just that is the part that frustrates me, is that we talked to JJ before the season started, and he said their PK and their power play have to get better. And they haven't. They just haven't. And that could be because of the lack of increased skill on the power play. That could be part of it. The other part of it, I don't think it's coaching. I think it's just we're waiting for this maturity of this team and this skill set of this team to kind of take hold. And look, they gave us a lot of hope and a lot of light in the beginning of the year, and they still do. 6 points out there, not completely, just washing the season away. But when you are struggling to be last place in the power play, even if you were to squeak into the playoffs, it's going to be a tough sledding to not score on the power play when a team gives you an advantage.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing I'll say about this too here, that's perfectly well said by you, Joe, about the power play being like having so much power play time and literally not getting nothing back in return. Like only just like I said, like the one thing that really bugged me more than anything, like my dad Joe Scorza brings up a good pointer. If the Flyers miss the playoffs by a couple points, he's going to blame that Columbus game for all the right reasons, and I think I'm going to be in that same boat as he. But the other thing that really surprised me the most is that actually the one thing that annoyed me was during the day was that Boston came back and beat Washington. I mean, Washington had Boston like on like basically before Boston tied it. I thought, okay, Washington's going to come back and win this game, and it'll give us an advantage. Never really got it going. They lost in hard to believe, like a 9 or 10 round shootout. Like it only took 9 or 10 rounds to finally beat them. But now it's like the worst part about it is now we're on the outside looking in again, and that's the worst part about it is that I don't know if I'm not skeptical at these next 2 games are going to show what the team is made of on this California road trip, because they got Anaheim that's coming in looking a lot better than they once were, obviously, with Joe Quenneville. That's basically resurrected the team, kind of like what Rick Tocchet did with us for the seat around. And then you got the Kings, and LA's looking to try to get in postseason play too, and obviously Andrei Kopitar just made history over the weekend up in New Jersey, so it'll be something to keep a close eye on too. The other thing that I mean, obviously, I would have felt I would have felt more confident if they would have won that game on Saturday against Columbus, and I would have said like, okay, now they go on this road trip, and now the only the countdown is on is to see what the Flyers are made of, what teams like the Kings and the Ducks. But now it's just like you can't be desperately losing these games. Obviously, sure, it was like you can get like points in overtime and shootout, but you desperately need 2 points, especially that Boston continues to win. Obviously, I would guess they play back tonight, or I mean, it's gonna be a real seesaw for the next few weeks or so, especially to see what they'll look like, and whatever the Flyers do. I mean, I don't want to sound like I was really annoyed about that game on Saturday because I really thought, I mean, obviously, like I brought up here, like they're not, it wasn't they weren't like getting blown out. It was only a 1-1 tie. They could have easily put the game under the wraps easily against Columbus, but obviously it's just that game felt like the way they lost, it was just like it was something that I would say that I do agree with my dad on this part is that my dad Joe Scorza says a good point here is that if they miss the playoffs, I think Columbus will be the reason why they missed the playoffs because you desperately needed points in every which way, and it's not going to be better if you continue to if you want to if say for example they split on Wednesday and Thursday in that California road trip. It doesn't look good for them right now, and right now it worries me a little bit that this game, I mean, there's 3 games coming up this week that are going to be desperately cause for concern, especially if they don't look well again. And that's going to be the biggest key more than anything.
Yeah, and on top of that, when you add in the fact that you know, every team that we're trying, actually, I think both of the teams that we're trying to chase, Detroit and Boston, I believe. Let me double check.
Yeah, Detroit too. Yeah,
Detroit and Boston both play tonight.
Oh wow! Shoot.
So they're going to have a chance to expand on that lead. The Bruins play again tomorrow night. So before the Flyers even have a chance to face off in their first game of the week,
wow, that's going to be tough.
Potentially going to be back an extra 4, so they could be looking at down 10 points on. Or is it 10? No, yeah, good. 10 points on Boston and at least 8 on Detroit before they even get a chance to play.
Oh boy, oh man, that's gonna be tough. Anywho, we'll move on here. So obviously, this is actually a new segment that I've been talking about the last few weeks. Kind of like a State of the Union, but it's like State of the Flyers at this point. But most importantly, the real situation here for the Flyers is right now is that, like we brought up early on, on this pod, and I just brought it up here just a couple minutes ago. They need to find a way to see who they are as a team for the 25-26 season, and also what they have come playoff time. That's going to be the biggest key more than anything, because if they can't do well against Columbus and they can't get a win against Columbus, who knows what Anaheim's going to do? Who knows what LA's going to do? And even look, I mean, San Jose is not a walk-on. They got a real good team over there. I mean, Celebrini is a really good player over there. But Joey, I'll ask you this question here. What do you see the Flyers do this week, especially this California road trip that desperately the Flyers needing points, like even Austin brought up here, let alone like Detroit and even Boston, that are right on your tail for mass majority of the part?
I'm going to sound like 90% of the Philadelphia Eagles when they come off a loss. You got to flush Saturday.
Sure.
You just got to. You have every potential of going into this West Coast trip and clean sweeping. You do. But what you have to kind of get back to is understanding how urgent every game is. There are certain games you have in hand. That's fine. That's going to gain you some points. Austin brought up that, Detroit and Boston are playing tonight and we don't play until Wednesday. Okay, that's still going to put some games in hand. And so for us, what we still have to focus on is making sure that we go into this Western front, this Western tour, and just take care of business like we took care of Minnesota. Now, the Flyers have been better a bit on the road, more so than they have been at home. And I could say
Surprising,
this.
right?
I could say this. This may be a good time for them to go out to the West, focus on nothing but hockey, and clean sweep all 3 games and say, come back home and say, okay, we have 3 wins. We need to build on this. We need to, because that 10-point swing can go the other way. I mean, that's the I don't want to make it seem like, okay, you're just putting your orange colored glasses on. I get that. But the numbers are there. I like a team like Detroit, a team like Boston can lose 3 games in a row. Like that is possible. They are not, it's not inconceivable for them to do that, especially if they're playing other teams that are, like Austin said earlier, that are either playing to get into the playoffs or are playing to raise their seeding. Now, look, we have 3 games left with Detroit this season. So we're going to have opportunities. We got to keep ourselves close. So that way, if there's an opportunity to take James, I'm going to say this as clear as I can. I don't know if we play Detroit in the last game, but this might come down to the last game of
It
the
really
season.
could. It really could. You're right. And the other thing that sticks out to me the most here too is that basically my dad brings up like a point here. Joe Scorza says, "Simple. They need wins and a little help from others." So that's the other thing too, kind of like the Ringo Starr song would say. But to your point though, Joe, I think you might be right. This actually could come down to the last game of the season, and I don't know if they do play Detroit. I think it's Chicago they close out with. So how would
That with Montreal, but in the week prior, they do play Detroit in Detroit as one of the last 4.
Oh wow! Oh boy,
That's going to be a big game.
That's going to be a big game. Yes, it is.
Just in the last, what is that? 8 games. It's Detroit at Islanders, Boston at Jersey, at Detroit, at Winnipeg, Carolina, Montreal.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, bit of a gauntlet to end the season.
Oh yeah. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. What's that?
Yeah.
I mean, the only team out of the only 2 teams out of all of them that aren't in playoff spots right now are the Devils and the Jets. Everyone else is playoff teams.
Even Chicago?
Chicago was not part of that stretch. Detroit, New York.
Oh, okay.
Boston, Jersey, Detroit,
Chicago
Winnipeg, Carolina, Montreal.
It's surprising Winnipeg's not in the mix, you know?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, granted, they're only 5 points out. You know, the Kraken are at 71 points and holding second wild card out west. Which is crazy to me. Anaheim has 77 points and are top in the Pacific.
Right. This is what JJ said, is the East is so strong that it's almost like if we were in the West, we'd be a top seed. Like that's true. That's the mind-boggling part, fellas. That's
crazy.
We aren't just rebuilding. We're rebuilding against like the gauntlet East, of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the only 3 teams out west that are over 80 points are Minnesota, Dallas, and then Colorado at the top.
Wow.
And we beat Minnesota and Colorado, if you think about it. So, and in their house to begin with.
Yeah, we're on the wrong conference, exactly.
We're in the wrong conference.
In the wrong,
74 points for the Flyers would put us tied with Utah and holding essentially second wild card. It would have bumped Seattle out.
Shoot.
Wow.
Damn. Well, that's the thing about it. If you can get wins in Detroit, Winnipeg, and like even you brought up here Austin in so many ways before, it's gonna, oh my god, that's wow.
It's a gauntlet, but James, would you rather have the tough games towards the end? Because then you see you really have it. If you really have it, you really have it, and winning those games will. I said this last show, and it needs to be reiterated this show, especially knowing what the gauntlet is you need to play every game like it's a playoff game.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you do. Every game is a game elimination playoff game. You
Oh
have
yeah.
to play
Yeah.
it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I mean, the test will be for the Flyers, especially, is that they're going to be like, okay, now we got to show what you're made of. You got to show me what.
Mhm.
I mean, they do very well against teams that are in competition. I mean, you think about that stretch in that Central Division with Colorado and Minnesota. They basically won those games. Yeah, sure, Winnipeg might be looking on the outside looking in, but that Detroit game, I mean, that Detroit game could be really huge for them. And I mean, is that Detroit? There's like two of them that we play in Detroit. One of them is here, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
because the 28th of March and 9th of April are both in Detroit, and then 2nd of April is at home against Detroit.
Gotcha.
I'm actually
gotcha.
I'm zooming out a little bit and looking at just like the remaining stretch of games.
Mhm.
As of right now, 4 teams total that are not 5 teams total that are not playoff teams at the moment. LA, San Jose, Chicago, New Jersey, and Winnipeg, and that's it.
Hmm.
Every other team that we play the rest of the way is playoff teams right now.
Wow. Wow, that's
Well,
we're definitely gonna be on the seesaw, that's for sure. Like Mark Zumwolf would say that for sure.
Or no, because Columbus technically is 1 point out, so
yeah.
then we do play them again. So
Yeah, we play Columbus
six
the 24th. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a couple of weeks from now. Oh wow, yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be
next
holy
week.
shit. Wow.
The boys, this is where
Well, like
you
it's like
find
game
out.
7, like they
Yeah,
treat every
I
game
was-
like it's game 7.
I
You-
had said that, yeah, and I had said this early on. You know, you're gonna potentially be looking down a gauntlet near the end of the year where you're playing a lot of playoff teams.
Yeah.
And this is the chance for, like I said early on in the season, even if you don't make it, give yourself a chance to spoil someone else's season.
Yeah. Be the mush, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing. This team has the choice of being the Jalen Hurts. Like these players on this team have the choice of being a Jalen Hurts or a Joel Embiid. You rise to the lights or you wither under them. So
I wouldn't say Joel Embiid, but I would say more like, well, yeah, you know what? Joel Embiid is a good comparison. I gotta admit.
So let's see. Now, I got to ask a question to you, Austin, because you brought up about some of the players, the star players that have started to step up. Owen Tippett, Zegras, Mitchkov here and there. You know, one person who's definitely gotten some shots just hasn't. It seemed like he was on a heater before the Olympic break, and it seems like he's kind of cooled down since the Olympic break, and that's Travis Konechny. Yeah, Travis seems like he's just trying and trying and trying. The fortune of puck is not going in for him. My question to you is between Couturier, who struggles to be the goal scorer that we'd hope him to be, and Travis Konechny, who we expect to be the goal scorer that he is, for them both to be struggling right now, how much of that is counting into all of the struggles of the other, how much of that is weighing on the other players like a Noah Cates and stuff like that?
I feel like it's not as much as you would think, because both of those guys, even though they're not putting they're not getting points on the sheets, they're still doing things that matter. You know, TK is drawing defenses because they know his goal scoring capability. Couturier is still winning faceoffs. He's still distributing the puck. So like those guys, it becomes a thing of like, I know what they're capable of, and I'm going to let them rock, because more than likely, if it's not them doing the goal scoring, they're going to find somebody who will be able to score the goal.
Right.
So, you know, especially Couturier, because I feel like a lot of the thing that people forget is like, granted, you know, coming up before he, you know, got drafted, he was a very good goal scorer, but under the time with Giroux, he also learned to facilitate, because as you get older, you're not going to have that same pop in your shot that you have. Passes you can keep as crisp as possible for as long as possible. And Couturier has been a very clean passer his entire career. Right. So even if you're not scoring goals, you know, winning the offensive draws, finding guys in good shooting lanes, you know, those kinds of things that he can do, I feel are even though he's not, putting pucks in the net and getting goals scored, he's contributing in another way. So, you have those guys that you're like, okay, he may not be working the way we want him to right now, but he's still doing stuff that matters. Because at the end of the day, you are going to need guys that are going to be able to find some of these guys to be able to get those better looks. And, having, either defense pinching away a little bit to create more of an open space for a guy like a Sanheim or a Drysdale up top to be able to fire a puck on net with a bit of a better lane can make all the difference. And the addition of Glendening, his net front presence has been very solid.
I thought it was a good move.
Even Michkov in some of the games this week, he was establishing himself as like a low far post presence during some offensive runs, even during some power plays. He's starting to find himself a bit of a home where he can put in some solid work. And the rotation that him and Zegras have on that power play is very good. So, from there, it's just, the guys around them being able to either get a good look themselves or get over to one of those guys for an even better look than they have can usually end up being all the difference. But sometimes you do have to remember, sometimes you don't need to make that extra pass. Sometimes your lane is enough, because you may be able to get a lane to where, you may not be able to hit the net, but you can hit one of the three guys that are in front of it and cause some sort of chaos, and that puck bounces around and one of your guys finds it and puts it in the back of the net. Bang, you're up 1-0, or you tie the game. Yeah. So rely on the traffic that's being caused. Rely on, sometimes, most of the time though, rely on yourself, because that's going to be, like, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest things. Because aside from it being the team game, there is that mental aspect of, like, sometimes you end up going back to the bench after your shift and being like, damn, I wish I wouldn't have given that one up and I would have taken that shot, because I think that look that I had would have been nice. Right. I know for a fact I have a lot of my time playing the sport of hockey. The amount of times that I'm like, I should have shot that shit. God dang it. Like, the amount of times that I'm like, I really should have, because holy crap, I saw the whites of that keeper's eyes and I should have let it go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very valid point there, also too. I think the other thing too with TK, I feel like he's pressing too hard too. I think he's trying to do a little too much. Obviously that game, I think it was a couple weeks ago when he was with that Capital game that he could have shot it, and right after that game, or it was I'm sorry, it was a couple days ago. It was like when he was playing Minnesota, and he was just desperately, like, he had an opportunity to shoot the puck, and I guess like either the pass, like, it flubbed on his stick, and it was just like really discombobulated after that goal, or not that chance that he had. But yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, sometimes, I mean, like, I think he's a great player. I mean, he's a very good player when it matters the most. But I think sometimes when it matters the most with Travis Konechny, it's like sometimes I guess the right word to describe it is that I think he just does a little too much, to say the least, going to admit. But he's done a great job all season. But I think ever since that Olympic break, I think he's not saying he regressed or anything, but I think he started to cool off a little bit, like you brought up, Joey.
Here's the other part of this. So, the power play is a big proponent. And when you look at, like, some of the power play lines that we put out there with Zegras, Michkov, Konechny, Tippett, those kind of guys, and Drysdale, like, the question has to be, and I brought this up earlier, you can't, even if you were to sneak into the playoffs, you got to rectify being last in power play. Right. You're not going to get to first place in the next month. We know that. But you got to do better. And so I got to ask the both of you, like, how? If you're talking, what are you emphasizing more? Because clearly what they're doing isn't working well enough.
It's not. No, it's not. I mean, well, it's probably the reason. I would have thought the reason why the power play was so lethal during the season was like Zegras, like, having some really good high expectations. But for me, I guess the I guess the right word would be is that the power play still has some holes. I mean, obviously, I think it's been showing that they had some concern, but the power kill has been pretty good again. I think that's probably the best part about it is that their penalty kill has been back to where it was a couple years ago. But that power play, I mean, maybe that's probably when you need to bring up players like the Bungs. I mean, you brought up Alex Bump a couple weeks ago, and he's done a very good job. Maybe in a couple of years from now, you bring in Nesbitt to see what he brings. The other Porter Matrone could be coming up later, sooner rather than later. So hopefully the big hopefully the big elephant in the room later in like the next season or so to see what they'll bring to the table and when they get called up here, obviously. So yeah, I mean that's going to be. I mean, obviously, right now, I think we just have to accept it for what it is. But at the same time, too, is that like if you have a good power play on the other side, it might be good night, Irene, before it's all said and done.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think one of the other major points of emphasis, because the special teams is, especially the power play, has been brutal for Philadelphia this year. But
Sure.
aside from that, focusing on winning faceoffs, you move Trevor Zegras to a center position. Focus on getting him as much like practice and work as possible on being able to win draws, specifically offensive zone draws. You need those more than anything to be able to get yourself into a good position to be able to win games. If you can win offensive zone draws, and I mean, I feel like even more than the offensive zone, winning defensive zone draws, preventing them from being able to put a chokehold on you and keep you in your zone is going to be paramount. That and being able to work on entering the zone again, because they had that issue before this season. They were just struggling to get the puck moving through neutral ice and into the offensive into the offensive zone. My apologies. So I feel like you need to go back to that, because they're struggling a little bit. Like they're putting some good games together where you think, oh, maybe they are able to move the puck better than I previously had anticipated them being able to, and then they come out and have a game where they struggle to get the puck in, or they just have a really bad night, passing the puck just in the neutral zone. Like they're able to advance, but if they're trying to move the puck to someone else as they're advancing, it's getting stymied. So it's more. I feel like it's more fundamental hockey that you need to go back on, because especially when you're having. I've brought this up before. When you're having a lot of these issues, the main thing that you want to go back to is the fundamental play. Figure out in terms of small sample sizes of just working through little things, see what makes a difference. I mean, granted, you're still within reach of a playoff spot, but sometimes you just have to go back to square one in your practices and be able to work that back out. And Philadelphia has been having a very up and down year, and sometimes going back to those fundamentals can make all the difference.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, you got anything to add before we move on?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, so obviously the week so we'll dissect the week ahead for the Flyers. So obviously this week is a California road trip for the Orange and Black. We got Anaheim, like we brought up earlier, and the Kings are back-to-back nights on Wednesday and Thursday, and I think we got San Jose on Saturday. Okay. So and I think right after that, that's when we play Columbus too. That's when we play Columbus. Okay, so well, here's the thing. This is going to be a tough stretch for them, especially if they can't go get a few wins on that California road trip. So, Joey, I'll ask you this question: how do you think they do this week?
I think they have to get. I think they have to go clean sweep. I honestly do. I know I want to say 2-1, but you really can't afford any more losses.
Agreed.
You gotta, despite the whole stealing points thing, it's the fact that the guys in front of you are still accumulating wins. Like they're getting straight 2 points, even if you stole a point. Yeah, you make up ground, but there's not enough time to make up ground point by point at this point. You have to take certain games and hope that they drop, because we all know that if Detroit and Boston win and we win, then it's just dead. It's a dead heat and nothing changes points wise. as far as how far behind we are. We only
Right.
gain ground if one of those two lose and we win.
Right.
And even if they lose in overtime, they gain a point. We gain a point, but it's not 2 points. At this point, we need 2 points and jumping up and continuing to jump up, because the closer we get to before we get to April 1st, or no, I'll fix that. Before we get to April 7th, we need to be within 3 to 4 points
Right.
of the wild card. That's the way we know we have a chance. Because if you're 3 or 4 points out with still 8 games to play, 5 to 8 games to play, and a couple of them are against the team that is ahead of you, you have a chance. So yeah, I think they have to clean sweep. They can't afford to think of anything being a loss. They have to go in and just, basically take care of business and make every game a playoff game.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Austin, how do you think they do this week, my friend?
I 100% agree with Joe. I would like to be a little like realistic and think that it would be a 2-1 week, but this week alone you have to win out. Because like Joe said, if you only win 2 and Boston wins 2 and Dallas wins 2, doesn't matter.
Sure.
So you have to go through this week thinking win all 3. And then I'll even widen that time frame for you, Joe. April 1st, because you play Detroit. What was that? From April 1st on, you play Detroit twice and you play Boston once. So you could end up in a position where getting those 2 wins on Detroit could sway the tide for you incredibly. Right. And then after that second Detroit game, going into play New York, Boston, then Jersey, you still have to fight. Like you're gonna be fighting the whole rest of the way because of how close you are in the wild card and how close a lot of these other teams are or are already sitting in a playoff spot trying to hold that. So you cannot afford a single loss going forward, honestly. Agreed. Unfortunately, because any loss that you have is just 2 steps back from where you were before. So you really do need to play, honestly, in my opinion, the best hockey that we've seen from the Philadelphia Flyers throughout this entire year. From here on out, it has to be, unfortunately, damn near immaculate hockey. Because if you're not, if you're giving up penalties and you're letting your middle of the pack penalty kill come out there and have to put in too much work, they're going to wear down and you're going to get beaten. So if you can play clean and play very good hockey and fight the entire way through, maybe 1 or 2 losses won't really break your back too bad, but you are already in a hole and you're trying to dig your way out. Don't let don't let too many of those, plants with the shovel trying to pull yourself back up, dig more dirt into that hole and start to bury you.
James, last year, I remember there was a point last season where we started to have that hope. And then it just felt like the Flyers just took an early vacation the rest of the season, the home stretch. This year's team has to understand that even though it may seem like a very impossible hill to climb, I go back to saying it doesn't mean Detroit and Boston can't have a 2 or 3 game losing streak. And if you are winning these games, and Boston and Detroit fall in really bad luck, then all of a sudden this race isn't as wide as it is now, and now it becomes more competitive. Look, we can put proof in the pudding that the Flyers are a playoff team, because we said it earlier, if they were in the West, they'd be in the playoffs with the record that they currently have. With where they are in the East, they have to prove that not only, whoever comes out of the East, we already know is going to do very well against the West in the Stanley Cup, because they have to go through the gauntlet of a playoff with going through the East. Yeah. The Flyers start that gauntlet earlier. They start that earlier because the hill that they have to climb is so deep, is so big, and it's against teams that, because they're in the East, because they're successful, you can't just take for granted that they're going to have a 2 or 3 game losing streak. But if they do, you have to take advantage of it. And that's why Philadelphia has to take care of what Philadelphia can control. And the only thing you can control is winning your games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys made valid points here, especially what the Flyers desperately need here. I think this is no time to play around here. You got to win all 3 games this week. I mean, for me, the toughest game that has to, I mean, right now it feels like it kind of like we talk about with the Eagles, is that the only team that can beat the Flyers is the Flyers at this point, because that's the most important thing here. Because you think about what the Flyers desperately need of points, and this gauntlet coming up soon, like even we brought up here many times on the show here today, that's going to show what they're made of. I mean, that's going to show what the team is. And frankly, if they can get past this gauntlet and get like 2 points in Anaheim and LA and San Jose, and even come back home with like just getting desperately needing of points, and they're actually back in postseason play, maybe I'll look. I mean, that Columbus game to me, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys, that game just really bugged me. It really bugged the shit out of me.
Well,
part of my friendship.
Here's the thing, James. You just said the only team at this point that really can beat the Flyers is the Flyers. That's what I think happened Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that was the Blue Jackets beating us. I felt like that was us beating ourselves because we didn't take advantage of the opportunities that we were given.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that was why I emphasized the power play. We were given opportunities to be at a advantage against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and their goaltender is not Bobrovsky anymore. Okay,
right?
Like the idea that this guy like stood on his head, and kudos to him, but
great game by him too.
You have to look at it from our perspective. If you only get 3 shots on goal for a 4-minute power play, that's not the goaltender, that's the team.
Absolutely.
That's the team defeating themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And the way Grease played on like you said on Saturday was like, I felt like I was watching like Sergei Bobrovsky-esque, like, or some like just like something in that effect like that. But yeah, I mean, say for example, this week you take on a player like Dostal and make him look like J.S. Jaguar in his prime, or Jonas Hiller, or even like I know the Flyers desperately the thing that I cannot stomach enough with this team is that once they go onto a little bit of a springboard here, there was like early on in the season they were getting good wins and springboarding into streaks and all that. But now it's just like, okay, now you got that gauntlet that you have coming up here too, is that you can't be dicking around. I mean, you can't be just sitting around waiting for something to happen. Like, you have to go out and get it. Like, you got to go out and get it, and you got to go out to see what you have in store. So that's the most important thing, is that if the Flyers can find a way to just get back to where they were as a team early on in the season, maybe a postseason berth could happen for them. We got a couple comments here before we sign off here. I think his name is Football Talk. Says, how's it going, guys? Thanks for chiming in, dude. I appreciate it. And he says, unable to capitalize on the power play like my Seattle Kraken. Ooh, okay. So valid point there. Thanks for chiming in. Also, hit that like and subscribe on our channels on Streampunk Entertainment and Hardcore Sports Network if you haven't followed already. So thanks for the follow-up, man. But the last thing I'll say about this too for this Flyers team is this week, I just want to see a team that is like willing to fight to get 2 points out of it. I would love to see the team just come out and say, okay, enough is enough, and they'll come back at it with full. I mean, it's just. I mean, I want to say the words of Adrian from Rocky, but just win. Just win in every way necessary. That's all I can just say is at this point, is that you just desperately need to win at this point. You just need to win. That's all it comes down to. It's just that you have to get wins in any way necessary, because once you don't get those wins, and once you don't get wins, it's going to make us realize that postseason play is not going to happen this year. I mean, sure. I mean, it'll be pissed off to see another team right on that same arena play and also get eliminated in the first round. And next thing you know, we got to worry about the Phillies and segue into this week of Phillies baseball. But I want to watch some Phillies. I want to see some Flyers playoff hockey first before anything else, though. But most importantly, that's going to be the thing here too, is that the Flyers need to be consistent every single night, and that's been their problem. Exactly right. That's exactly where I was going to go at. They just need to stay consistent for the most part. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this edition of This Week at Flyers Hockey today. I want to thank Austin Hammel and Joey Marks like they always do. You guys do a great job like always. Austin, where can people see you next, good buddy?
Aside from, again, next week, talking about these 3 games here on This Week in Flyers Hockey, right over here at twitch.tv/Hambo26. Going to be continuing my run of Baldur's Gate 3 tonight. I did put because I was still feeling some effects from being sick the previous week. I didn't post up part 2 of Expedition 33 on the Hardcore Play and Rewind channel, but it went up this past Friday. Part 3 will be up this Friday, and I will be doing some streams of that to get some more to be able to edit and post up over there. But aside from that, just hanging around. So every once in a while I'll be live on Twitch, or if you're in my Discord, hanging around in there.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff, man. Yeah, let's go Flyers, right? Let's go. Let's get it. Hopefully, it's a better week for them. Joey, I know we always have a 2-week off with passing that, but we got a jam-packed show, I think, this week for another Fly Like an Eagle, right?
Absolutely. Mitch Kopsky, myself, and you will break down the Dallas Goedert signing, 1 year, $7 million.
Good to see DG back.
Yeah, and Brandon Graham, and we'll see how things go with the AJ Brown saga as it continues and continues.
It's Groundhog Day every day with that shit.
Yeah, but we're going to break down that stuff. We're also going to break down upcoming draft and potential draft positioning for the Philadelphia Eagles, drafting at 23rd overall. So, join me, you, and Mitch Friday, 4 o'clock, Streampunk Entertainment, Hardcore Sports Network, Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah, and also one more thing before we go here. Congratulations on a great career by Big Play Slay, considering retiring. Called a career today after 13 years, and also was a great part of the Eagles' success last year in Super Bowl 59, and also a great career he had, and also as the AJ turns, like it's kind of like as the wheels turn, like kind of like the John Lennon song. Great song, by the way. But also kudos to Big Play Slay on a great career, hopefully. And thank you for making us have a great secondary, and also grooming Quinyon Mitchell into a great player. And also congratulations on your future endeavors. And I don't think the funny fact is too, I said this last year about Brandon Graham at this point, but he came back. So who knows if the Eagles need a secondary player to, say, for example, if there's an injury here. So I would be sure he'll be on the phone. Howie will be on speed dial to get him back in Eagles green more than anything like that. But
he said that the only team he would play for is the Eagles.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for today. So now for everyone behind the scenes and for everyone that may work here, hope for the Flyers get desperately needing a points this week. Until then, we'll see you next week. For Austin Hammel, for Joey Marks here, thanks everybody for listening. And now from all of us to all of you, thank you for watching. Good night, good hockey. And let's get some wins here, boys. Let's get it. Let's play with some jam. We'll see you next week.